April 1241, Western Poland, the mightiest war machine the medieval world had ever seen, was about to clash with the proudest knights of Christian Europe. What unfolded over the next 3 days would shatter the illusion of European invincibility and leave a scar on Christendom's memory that would ache for centuries. The Mongols had arrived. To grasp the scale of what was about to happen, we must understand who these Mongols truly were. They were not the barbaric hordes described by terrified European chroniclers, but the inheritors of Genghis Khan's revolutionary art of war, a perfectly disciplined engine of conquest that had expanded from the Pacific Ocean to the edge of Europe in less than 2 generations. Every Mongol was born in the saddle, riding before he could properly walk. He could strike a target while galloping at full speed, live for weeks on mare's milk and dried meat, and cover distances no European force could dream of. By 1241, the Mongol Empire stretched from China's coast to Europe's doorstep. The great cities of Central Asia had fallen, and the Islamic world lay shattered. Even China's Great Wall, the supposed barrier against the north, had failed utterly. Now, under the command of Batu Khan, grandson of Genghis, about 30,000 of the most efficient soldiers on earth advanced westward. They had already annihilated Kiev, the jewel of the Rus, and swept through Hungary like wildfire. This was no random raid. It was a meticulously planned invasion. Batu split his forces. One army ravaged Hungary, while another struck Poland to secure their flank. Lublin burned, Sandomierz was looted, and Kalisz left in ruins. Their next target, Silesia, one of Poland's richest duchies. Duke Henry II of Silesia, known as Henry the Pious for his devout faith, knew what awaited him. Reports from the east told of entire cities wiped out in a single day, their populations erased, their armies annihilated. Witnesses called the Mongols demons on horseback, warriors who appeared from nowhere and vanished like ghosts. Yet Henry refused to flee. He understood that if the Mongols were not stopped here, Europe itself would lie exposed. He sent desperate calls for aid across Poland, Moravia, and the German states. The response was astonishing. The Knights Templar, veterans of the Crusades, answered. The Teutonic Knights rode from the Baltic in black and white armor. Polish nobles set aside their rivalries. Duke Mieszko of Opole brought his host. Moravian infantry marched north. Even miners from Silesia, men who had never held a sword, took up arms to defend their faith. Chroniclers exaggerated that 100,000 men gathered, but modern estimates suggest closer to 25 to 40,000, still one of the largest medieval armies ever assembled. Facing them were about 20,000 Mongols under Baidar and Kadan. The Europeans outnumbered them, wore heavier armor, wielded finer steel, and marched under the Pope's blessing. They believed God was on their side. They would soon learn faith alone could not save them. Baidar and Kadan were no savages. They were masters of strategy, trained from birth in the science of war. The Mongols had spent years studying European tactics through spies disguised as merchants. They knew the knights' strengths and their fatal weaknesses. Knights were powerful, but slow, their horses quickly exhausted, their hunger for glory easily exploited. They excelled in close combat, while the Mongols' art was killing from afar. April 7th, 1241, Day 1. The European host advanced from Legnica, their banners rippling in the cold wind. In the center rode the heavy cavalry, armored knights gleaming like iron mountains. Their war horses, bred for power, poured at the earth, eager to charge. On the flanks marched Polish spearmen, Moravian crossbowmen, and miners with crude tools turned into weapons. Priests moved among them, offering blessings. The sight was magnificent, the strength of Christian Europe united at last. Then, on the horizon, a haze, not the slow dust of marching men, but a restless shimmer that moved unnaturally fast. The first Mongol scouts appeared, small figures on wiry horses. The knights laughed. These were the dreaded Mongols, tiny men on small mounts. They would crush them easily. But the Mongols stopped just within bow range, far beyond that of any European crossbow, and began their work. The composite bow, made of horn and sinew, could kill with deadly precision at over 350 meters. Arrows rained down like hail. When the knights tried to advance, the riders vanished, only to reappear elsewhere. For hours this dance continued, a relentless storm of arrows. Each Mongol carried around 60 arrows, and thousands more followed on pack horses. Millions of projectiles darkened the sky. The Europeans endured, shields raised, but it broke their spirit. These were men trained for valor and face-to-face combat, not to be bled from a distance by enemies they couldn't touch. Horses collapsed screaming. Men fell pierced at the joints of their mail. Crossbowmen tried to return fire, but the Mongols were always gone by the time they aimed. When the Templars begged to charge, Henry refused. He knew it was a trap, yet standing still meant dying slowly. By nightfall, hundreds were dead. The Mongols had lost barely a handful. Then came the drums, low, rhythmic thunder echoing through the darkness, denying sleep, breaking minds. Day 2, April 8th. Dawn burned blood red. Exhausted, frightened and sleepless, the European camp erupted in arguments. Nobles quarreled, the Templars demanded action, and Duke Mieszko threatened to retreat. Under pressure, Henry made a fatal choice. He allowed a partial cavalry charge to drive the Mongols off. 2,000 knights thundered forward, a storm of iron and fury. The Mongols pretended to flee. The knights roared in triumph, chasing them for miles. But it was the Mongols' greatest weapon, the feigned retreat. When the Europeans were stretched thin and disorganized, the trap closed. Hidden cavalry emerged from the hills, cutting off every escape. The massacre was swift and merciless. Of 2,000 knights, fewer than 200 survived. Mieszko himself fell beneath a rain of arrows. His severed head was later sent to Henry with a note: "Tomorrow, you die." Day 3, April 9th, 1241. With his army crippled and morale shattered, Henry chose to make a final stand near Legnica field. He positioned his troops on a slight rise beside a stream, his last hope of holding formation. The Mongols appeared at dawn, but this time they brought something new: strange cauldrons mounted on carts. The Europeans watched in confusion. Then, with a hiss, the devices spewed thick black smoke, gunpowder from China. The battlefield vanished into a suffocating fog. Confusion turned to panic. Commands were lost, units collided, horses bolted. Then the Mongols struck their cruelest blow: deception. Using captured prisoners, they had learned a single Polish phrase: "Uciekaj, straciliśmy." "Retreat, all is lost." Shouted through the smoke, it spread panic like wildfire. The infantry fled, exposing the center. The Templars and Teutonic Knights fought on, forming circles of steel, dying to the last man. Henry tried to rally his men, raising his banner high. For a moment, scattered troops turned back, until an arrow found him beneath the arm. He fell, refusing surrender. The Mongols, respecting his bravery, executed him swiftly. His mother would later recognize his body only by a sixth toe on his foot. By noon, the battle was over. Between 10,000 and 25,000 Europeans lay dead. The Mongols lost perhaps 700. Silesia's nobility was wiped out, the Crusader orders crippled. The plains of Legnica were carpeted with corpses, so many that crows darkened the sky. The shock reverberated through Europe. Kings fortified cities, popes called new crusades, and chroniclers wept that the Mongols are God's punishment for our sins. The age of the knight was finished. The Mongols had proven that courage and armor meant nothing against discipline and science. Yet fate intervened. In December 1241, Great Khan Ogedei died. By Mongol law, every prince had to return home for the election of a new ruler. Batu withdrew. and Europe was spared annihilation. The Mongols would never come this far west again, but the memory endured. Legnica changed Europe forever. Warfare evolved. Archers, coordination, and early gunpowder replaced blind charges and chivalric pride. The Mongols had forced a civilization to adapt or perish. Today, Legnica is peaceful farmland. A monument marks where Duke Henry fell. Each April, reenactors gather to honor the fallen. Yet no reenactment can capture the terror of that day, when the world of knights and chivalry was shattered in smoke and blood. At Legnica, the Mongols did not just win a battle, they ended an era, and in 3 days, changed the course of history forever.